Hey guys, I hope everyone's doing well on an extremely hot Saturday afternoon in most of the country in July. I'm actually in Texas, one of the hotter places around. At my what used to be my mother's house, I've inherited it, which is north of San Antonio at the start of the hill country. And I thought I would continue my series on explaining these lessons that I've learned in my 60s. I'm trying to keep these pretty short, and so I'm not sure how many I'm going to get through, how many of my learnings I'm going to get through in this particular video, because I think the one that I'm going to tackle first is complicated, and I'm going to spend more time explaining it. So here goes. So the first learning is from my 60s goes something like that technology of government is broken, and it's both a hardware and a software problem. I imagine that most people, when they hear this, kind of resonates with them, because I think as citizens we all have this experience of government not really working as well as we kind of remembered it working in our youth. Let me go back and put some context on this, because I need to go back to the mid 1990s. I was at CIA, and I began to be aware of and learning about what the internet and digital technologies were going to do. And in short order, I became absolutely convinced that the internet and digital technologies was going to change everything, change the world, and in particular, change how knowledge organizations did their work. And it wasn't a particular popular opinion at CIA, but I'm, happy that I was more right than wrong about that. But I kind of kick myself because, and this is often a big issue in terms of analysis, you kind of understand the initial impact of a change, but then you don't pursue it far enough or deep enough so that you don't really work through or consider everything that's going to change or that's going to be affected by some big change in the environment or in technology, for example. So while I knew that the internet and digital technologies was going to change the way knowledge organizations were going to have to work, I didn't really anticipate that it was going to have such an impact on how governance worked in modern societies. And as I said, I think it's a hardware and a software problem. The hardware problem is that we have a world that works much more quickly. It's definitely more complex, but basically the mechanism of government, the structure of government, is pretty similar to what it was in the late 19th and early 20th century. And what's with that? That's just kind of nutty. We now have a world where there's way more information. It moves way more quickly through society. It's no longer controlled by elites. And now the concerns, the aspirations, the biases, everything, all the ideas in the average John and Jane Doe are now being expressed and having an impact on society on a daily basis. And what I think that means is that government structures need to change as well to match the speed at which things happen in society, to handle the volume of information that's available. But government has been very slow to change. And we have in the United States, we have this fantastic written constitution that the fact that it's written and very difficult to change has been a huge strength for us for more than 200 years. And yet now I think those very strengths are becoming weaknesses. Anything that we might think might be a good idea of changing the hardware of government is just going to be really hard to get agreement on and implementation. In fact, my guess is that if we ever had a constitutional convention to try to change the Constitution, just one of the handful of ways you can do that, that the lack of agreement, the polarization in the American public and in the people that would attend the Constitutional Convention would lead to the dissolution of the United States. In other words, I don't think all 50 states could ever again agree to a common piece of paper to govern the country, except maybe a very loose type of union that resembles more the EU than the current United States. So that's the hardware part of it. The software part of it is that regardless of the structure, government still communicates with the American people for the most part in these stiff and formal ways, like press conferences, or if you have a dispute with the IRS or some other government agency, normally you have to embark on these Byzantine kind of appeals or filings, and hey, God forbid that you actually have to call and talk to someone. It's much easier to change your bank account than to do anything in government. And I think that's a problem too. I don't know too many countries that are seriously thinking through how to modernize the hardware and software of government. I'm not an expert on this, but I do believe that the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, are known for really thinking hard about how government could be modernized. But there's another kind of the elephant in the room country that is thinking hard about how government can be modernized, and that's China. So China has really attempting something, I think, unprecedented by controlling the public space and the public discourse in China so that events unfold in a predictable way that the government can control. That is the Chinese experiment, and they call it scientific government. The internet is controlled in such a way that it's not the free-for-all that it is in the United States or in the West. And I just think it's going to be a really fascinating outcome of this century to see whether or not China succeeds in doing this. My bias is that humans don't like this level of control, don't really like this level of micro manipulation that the Chinese government is engaged in. And I keep expecting that there will be some kind of counter reaction that will undermine what the Chinese scientific government approach is trying to do. But I haven't seen it happen yet. I mean, you saw glimmers of it in the reaction to COVID, but nothing seemingly long-lasting yet. So I think it's just, I just think that the world right now, and China in particular, is engaging in a really fascinating social experiment. And we're going to learn a lot about what humans are really like based on how it all turns out. So I'm approaching 10 minutes, so I think that means I'm going to stop here, and I'll pick this up either later today or tomorrow. I really appreciate people that are listening to this. Again, you can read all the lessons I've learned in my 60s and engage in a conversation with me about it on social media. I've posted them both on Twitter and on Threads. And I really welcome any suggestions, changes, counterings that people have to offer, because I think it's through that exchange and ideas that we're all going to learn. So with that, stay cool, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.